Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast, the Dynasty feed. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined by Pat Fitzmaurice. Fitzy, we're into it. It's August. We're here.
Oh, man, we are fully into it. Worm, and the training camp updates are flying, and drafts are on the schedule. I feel like I'm going to be on the clock somewhere or another every day for the next month, approximately. So, great time of year. Hopefully everyone in the audience is as excited and fired up as we are.
Some would call it the best time of year, so we are very excited to be the busiest also, right? That's the downside, but a worthy trade-off, certainly, for just getting to talk about fantasy more and more. And, you know, I definitely have noticed, I've kind of been like teasing this feeling the last couple of weeks, but I have noticed a very clear shift just internally. Like, obviously I was excited and missing football, but it is like, I'm like anxiously missing football now. I'm like, I need, Sunday night football, like I need air to breathe type of missing football. It is arrived, Fitz.
Well, as we record this on a Tuesday, we are about to get the debut of Hard Knocks with the Buffalo Bills tonight on HBO. That's pretty good. And we've got a full slate of preseason action this weekend. And, that's always a mixed bag, but we'll see a little bit of the starters this week. So should be fun.
I think one of the reasons that I find myself this time of year missing football so much is because I'm not that interested in August football. Like, I just want it to be September. I am not somebody who has ever really watched Hard Knocks or cared about it. I'm not somebody who gets that into preseason games. Like, I would watch the Ravens just to be like, oh, cool, it's fun to see Lamar on the field again. But like beyond that, it's like, okay, I saw a drive. Like, I'm good. Like, I just want it to be. I want it to be real. I want it to count. I want it to matter. And I don't begrudge anybody who feels differently about football content in August. It's just like that's the reason I miss the season so much, is because I don't feel like it's back yet. I won't feel like it's back until September.
Yeah, I get it. Even though your Ravens are notoriously good in the preseason.
Dominant in the preseason.
The funny thing is, they are catching 3.5 points from the Colts. I presume that's because the Colts are probably going to want to give significant time to both Richardson and Daniel Jones, which is why, whereas Lamar's probably either not playing or playing one series. But, man, like I couldn't bet the Ravens fast enough on the money line on that, and I'm getting like plus 140 or something like that.
Yeah, I think I saw that Richardson is going to be starting that game, was announced earlier. All right, let's dive into, we're going to do what we always do with the show, which is kind of a check-in on the updated trade value chart. This is the first Tuesday of the month, which means that we have a recent update a couple of days ago at this point to our Dynasty trade value chart. It gets updated on the first of every month all year long. We will never skip a month of those updates. So we'll kind of look through, see, like we always do on this show, kind of who's moving where, moving up, moving down, what we're really paying attention to this time of year from the Dynasty perspective. Really the last month before Dynasty and Redraft become not one and the same, but a lot more hand-holding in terms of how we're evaluating guys, like once we get into the season. So it's an interesting conversation this time of year as well. We'll hit on some news and notes that came out earlier today as well, kind of while we're talking about the trade value chart, guys like Jordan Addison, Kyren Williams, some of those updates that happened earlier today. And then we'll dive into everybody's questions the second half of the show, get through as many as we possibly can on Discord. Does that sound good to you, Pat?
It does. Let's roll, Worm.
All right, let's do it. We always start with the quarterback, so we'll do that again. Small drop for Joe Burrow. He's still fourth, but a little bit more of a gap between him and those top three. I think that's warranted, frankly, just because those three are, I think, so clearly in a tier of their own. I don't mind a wider gap there. It's not like he fell a ton. Like I said, still fourth most valuable quarterback there. Jalen Hurts slightly moves up. He's still in that fifth spot. He was tied with Mahomes. He's now separate from Mahomes, but obviously still very close in terms of those values. Drake May has moved up a little bit. Caleb Williams down a little bit. J.J. McCarthy up a bit. Most of the folks are either in the exact same place they were, or it's very minor moves. But again, some of these are breaking ties, right? Like Drake May was tied at 8th with C.J. Stroud. He's now tied for 7th with Justin Herbert. So just kind of some small changes here and there. Do you consider any of these moves, Fitz, either ones I've read or other ones that were made in this chart, to be significant moves? Or do you think it's a fair assessment to say these are all pretty minor and there's not really many changes at the position right now?
All pretty minor. There was a slight dip in Joe Burrow's numerical values and a slight increase in Jalen Hurts, which closed up the gap between those two, and now they're pretty close. I kind of think that's how it should be. I mean, there's some feeling that Burrow's game might age a little better in Dynasty as a pocket passer, but obviously Hurts delivering the superior rushing value the last couple of years with those double-digit touchdowns every year. And then really the only other one that stood out was a bit of a drop for Caleb Williams, who now has the same value as Bo Nix and only slightly more valuable than J.J. McCarthy. And I think that sort of matches I don't know, while the supporting cast looks great and Ben Johnson could help him a lot, the training camp reviews of Caleb Williams have not been glowing. So, Worm, let me ask you, would you rather have Caleb Williams than Bo Nix in Dynasty right now, and how close is it for you?
I mean, this is like the question of how much are you weighing your kind of pre-draft assumptions and evaluation versus
priors,
what we've seen one year in. Exactly. I think the way I would answer that is I would rather have Caleb, but I think I am wrong, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think it is the correct answer to prefer Caleb. I think Bo Nix has done enough and is in a good enough situation that he should warrant, I think, being valued more highly. The way I approach Dynasty and shooting for ceiling, and it's probably unfair to, act like Bo Nix doesn't have a ceiling because he does run and obviously is in a Sean Payton offense. But, you know what I'm getting at. The ceiling for Caleb is like, if you believe what you believed prior to last year, maybe the best quarterback in football. And I just like kind of in somebody in Dynasty who wants to take those swings. But I think Bo Nix should be valued more highly. Like, I actually don't think they should be tied. I do think Bo Nix should be ahead and with greater value. I just personally am the type to take the swing on Caleb. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's close. I think the tie is sort of warranted. Nix he looked really good last year, and he probably has, I don't know, maybe an even better situation with he just seemed to mesh in Sean Payton's offense right away. He's got a terrific offensive line. I know the Bears have upgraded theirs too. It just seemed like it was a real comfortable fit for Nix last year, and he made all those college starts, so it was a real smooth transition to the NFL. And we have yet to see Caleb really get settled in. So a big year for Caleb. I mean, he is at an interesting point. Like, I didn't think year 2 would be a crossroads here for him, but here we are.
It's a 4-way tie from 10 to 13. Brock Purdy, Bo Nix, Jordan Love, and Caleb Williams, all of the exact same values. I forget if you said that already. Sorry, I missed it. But it's really not just the 2 of them. It's all 4 of those guys. So how would you rank Purdy, Nix, Love, Williams?
Oh, right now in my rankings, I have Williams, Nix, Purdy, Love, and they are all adjacent to him. Williams is 10, Nix 11, Purdy 12, Love 13. But I mean, it's funny. It is close. It's really
funny because my gut reaction, and this is like without, actually sitting together and really thoughtfully putting together rankings the way you do. My gut reaction would have been actually Love first. I am really a believer that the Packers are going to throw a lot more this year with Love not dealing with, hopefully with a week 1 injury that I think probably affected the way they called plays throughout the season. They did draft a first-round receiver. Your mileage may vary on how much you value Matthew Golden, but I am actually really buying into, like, two guys that I was very excited about last year as pocket passers were Jordan Love and CJ Stroud. Of the 2 who had, relatively down seasons, Love is the one that I'm in. Obviously, he's ranked, close to CJ Stroud. Love is the one that I'm more buying into the fantasy bounce back. I actually have I think he's getting pretty underlooked in redraft and also in Dynasty, frankly. But I don't think it's like a wide gap, right? Like, I'm not saying he's well ahead of Purdy, Nix, and Caleb, but I think I would actually have Love at the top.
Yeah, that's fair. The Packers' pass rate over expected in Love's first couple of years was pretty close to just balanced. Like, they passed about as much as expected, and then it crashed last year. They were ultra run heavy. I think it was because the sprained MCL that caused him to miss 2 games lingered for a little bit. They brought him back pretty early after only 2 missed games, and then mid-season he tweaked his groin, and I don't think he was really fully healthy the entire season. So you're right. Maybe could throw more this year.
By now, most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to go see what all the buzz in the Dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. Think it sounds complicated? It's not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is the platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test out your general manager skills for free in a mock free agency auction. If you like what you see, use promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. That's promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. All right, Fitz, let's go to the next position, which will be running back. And again, not like a ton of huge changes. The biggest is Quinshon Judkins. Obviously, that's related to some off-field stuff. He drops down to RB20. It was a numerical value of about 11 kind of points of value lost. So he was up kind of just in that like outside the top 10 range, actually, based on numerical value. Like I said, now down to 20. So a pretty sizable drop considering where in the rankings he was. Where did you have him? Does 20 feel right to you with the off-field kind of question marks now?
It does. I think he's eventually going to sign and come in. I mean, so depending on the extent of his legal problems, like this could either be too much of a drop or not enough of a drop. Right now, I've got him at RB19 in Dynasty. So I think RB20 feels about right, but I do feel bad for the Dynasty managers who took him in rookie drafts back in April or May, and not to see this coming.
Obviously, I wasn't fading him for this type of reason, which has happened, and it's unfortunate to see. But I was fading Judkins, honestly, just because I like so many of the other running backs better, and I was in a lot of rookie drafts where, okay, somebody took Judkins, I'll happily take Caleb Johnson or RJ Harvey or whoever next, right? Those guys, I felt like, it didn't feel to me like he was separator, and I like Dylan Sampson so much that I wasn't putting everything on, Judkins is going to be the obvious bell cow here. Again, that was for on-field reasons, not what we've seen play out off-field. It's interesting to note that I mentioned he's RB20. There's a pretty sizable gap between the top 19 and the rest. We have these numerical values assigned, and RB, 17, 18, 19 are 50, 50, and 49. Those are the numerical values. Quinshon Judkins is next down at 43. So there's actually kind of a real gap there between those. And 18 and 19 are Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry, who are obviously only really helpful in win now scenarios. So there aren't that many running backs that are very highly valued, at least by way of this chart. It really is, unless you're getting one of those veterans as kind of a push to win this year. You're looking at 17-ish assets, if you want to call them that. That is really what you're working with here. So it's an interesting position. I mean, that's kind of always the case, right? Where it's you want to be strong there, but it's shorter shelf life, injury risk, all that stuff. Does anybody else stand out to you? I do want to ask about Kyren Williams actually before I throw it to you for other names. He doesn't move in this chart because it was done a couple of days before. I don't know if he would have moved regardless, but he signs a reasonably sized extension with the Rams. Somebody who, I feel like every year we talk about whatever third round rookie, Blake Cora or Jarquez Hunter, can bring something different to this offense. He has been a really volume heavy running back, but not the most efficient or explosive. But the Rams are investing in him financially, and they're committing to, years of him making, I think it's $11 million a year, which I believe is 7th highest amongst running backs I saw. I didn't double check that, but that's not nothing, and it's in a Sean McVay offense, and we've seen him get usage before. So with this information, would you have ranked him higher than RB14? Well, we're really a tie for RB11. He has the same numerical value as Jacobs, Walker, Brown, and Kyren are all in that 11 to 14 range tied. But would you have ranked him at the top of that group?
His ranking has not changed for me, Worm, just because I always thought he was going to be the lead guy this year. But I mean, I do think his dynasty managers get to rest a little easier because, as you mentioned, he hasn't been a super explosive or super efficient running back. But running backs in Sean McVay offenses are pretty valuable if they are getting the heavy workload. So now we don't have to lose sleep about the role, especially since the Rams have been adding backs in the draft with Blake Corum last year, Jarquez Hunter this year. Like he is the lead guy, and those guys, you know, if you were speculating on one of them becoming a potential Kyren Williams replacement, might have to wait a while.
Would you move down Jarquez Hunter or, RB49 and Blake Corum RB53? Specifically, where would you rank them with this information? How far would
See, that's the thing. Maybe a bit, though, because, like, it was always which one would it be if it was going to be either of them. And, like, there was never any guarantee that one of them would shove aside Kyren Williams. So those guys were always pretty speculative assets, and I think they kind of remain so. It's just that now, short of a major injury, like, it's hard to see them getting significant playing time in the next couple of years.
Jaden Blue actually dropped a bit in value in this chart. There have been some reports lately that he's doing kind of pretty well in training camp and even getting some first-team reps here and there. Not that you dropped him, crazy far or anything, but is there any regret in dropping him if things are maybe turning around? Would you want to maybe bump him back? I mean, he's RB55. He was in the RB48, 49 range, so it's not like it's a crazy fall. But do you think he belongs inside the top 50?
Yeah, I mean, now that he's getting a little bit more run in those, I don't know, there were those troubling reports about his work ethic. I'm not sure what to make of it, and he's going to be a real hard guy to get a read on. Like, in hindsight, maybe he should have stayed about the same. And just for the record, it's not just me arbitrarily moving guys around the board. This is fueled by the combined rankings of myself, Derek Brown, and Andrew Erickson. So, but yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like the news about training camp started with sort of troubling reports on him, and lately the reports have been much more encouraging. So probably should have just stayed where we had him.
Wide receiver is similar to running back in that there aren't a ton of major movers here. Courtland Sutton is somebody who did go up a bit. He obviously had signed his own extension here. Is that what drove the rise in his value? He goes from, he's wide receiver 40 now. The numerical value goes from 32 to 37. So 32 would have been down at about wide receiver 47. So about a 7-spot jump here for him, 5 in terms of the numerical value. Was that driven by the extension in Denver?
Yeah, partly the extension, and I think partly he was just ranked a little bit too low. I don't know. He's just a guy who doesn't seem to quicken the pulses of fantasy, of dynasty people very much. But we're looking at a guy who is the clear number one receiver on what should be a pretty good offense.
Where do you have him ranked personally?
Let's see. So on the chart, he is number 40, wide receiver 40. And in my dynasty rankings, he is wide receiver... Oh, sorry. This is, I've got him at 43.
I expected you to have this memorized, Fitz.
Yes. It's maybe a little lower than I should have him, but, yeah.
I want to ask at the top of the receiver position, Fitz. Jamar Chase is 94 trade value and Jefferson is a 90. I'm surprised the gap is even that wide between the two. Just by reputation, it feels like they're neck and neck. I do think Chase being one is the correct way to do it. So if it was like 94 versus 93, like that's no problem to me that there is a gap. 4 spots in numerical value, that actually went up. It was just 2 prior to this last update. It was Chase was a 92 and Jefferson was a 93. Jefferson was a 91 and Chase was a 93. So yeah, it was a two numerical value gap. Now it's 4. That going up, I mean, I know rookie quarterback, essentially a rookie quarterback in Minnesota. Jefferson had the hamstring thing early in training camp. Again, I think Chase should be first, but it does feel like they should be more neck and neck, doesn't it?
I think they should be neck and neck if they had identical quarterbacks or nearly identical quarterbacks. But considering that one has maybe the best pure passer in the league as his quarterback and the other has a guy who's not taken an NFL regular season snap, I think 4 points is a reasonable difference between the two.
So then let me ask you, why why are CeeDee Lamb and Malik Neighbors tied? Because they're 3-4. They're down at 82 and 82. If quarterback is a differentiator between Chase and Jefferson, do we think that Neighbors is a better receiver than Lamb to the point that the difference in quarterback means they should be tied? Because CeeDee Lamb has chemistry with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott is a very good passer. It's not like he's older, but he's not like, in his 40s. Whereas Malik Neighbors is going to be getting passes from, a very washed Russell Wilson. Like, hopefully Jameis Winston would be great, but I'm surprised if that's the reasoning behind Chase and Jefferson separated, that Lamb and Neighbors are equal.
Yeah, I mean, Neighbors is younger and led the league in targets last year, right? So, I mean, that's or did he lead the league in targets? I forget, but I know he had more than.
If not, he was close.
Yeah, so I don't know. I do understand the quarterback difference, but there's also an age difference, and Neighbors just got peppered with targets right out of the gate. So I think you still feel good about him. Plus, the Giants at least have options at quarterback. If Russ may or may not be cooked yet. Winston, I mean, you always are going to feel good about any receiver who is playing with Jameis Winston at any given time. You're just not feeling great about the interception possibilities. And they did trade up to get Jackson Dart, and I don't know whether he's going to be good or not, but at least they're trying at the quarterback position.
I think if I had to plant my flag on one player inside the top 10 being too low, and this isn't a question I prepped you for, so you can take a second to think about it. I'll give you my answer first. But if I had to pick one, I think Nico Collins should be higher than wide receiver 9. He is entering his, fourth year, I think, right? Paired with what I think is a very, very good young, passing quarterback. I do think the offensive line stuff will get better, even if it's not going to be elite in, coming off of last season right away. And I just think he's a stud. Like, a lot of the guys who kind of like really focus on receivers like as a specialty, like Matt Harmon's of the world, like basically are saying this guy is like maybe the third receiver behind Chase and Jefferson, like as a receiver, just setting aside fantasy and football. He's really, really good. I really trust the quarterback. Like if I'm looking here, I'm not saying this is correct, but I personally, like, I might rather have him than Drake London, Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, I just, it would not stun me if Nico Collins was wide receiver 3 this season and giving wide receiver 1 a run for their money. I think wide receiver 9 is too low for him.
I've got him ahead of Amon-Ra. And so I kind of agree. I mean, Drake London, like, really broke out once the Falcons offense was sort of freed from the constraints of what it had been with Kirk Cousins as the quarterback and not really taking shots downfield. And we saw Zach Robinson use London in the slot more last year. So, like, I'm really bullish on London, but I think we could be bullish on Nico too. Really, the only knock on him is that he's missed a handful of games each of the last 2 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, because he was breaking out too last season. It was just, prior to the injury, but he was, certainly had an extremely strong start to the year in 2024. First 5 weeks, 117 yards, 135 yards, 86 yards, 151 yards, 78 yards, and 3 touchdowns in that span, those first 5 weeks. So, like, he was looking the part of, an elite fantasy wide receiver. So, yeah, I just wanted to shout him out because he's still there. Is there anybody, if I limited you to inside the top 10, that you would say, like, this is actually a guy that I think is too low?
No, I mean, I think they're all pretty spot on, and it's hard to, like, it is really hard to differentiate between Brian Thomas Jr., Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Nico Collins. Take any dynasty managers, put them together and try to get a consensus on how to sort out those 5. I think you might get 5 different answers.
Yeah, I think I'd have Nico like 5th or 6th behind, like, Chase, Jefferson, Lamb, and Neighbors. I think are unassailable inside the top 4 from a fantasy perspective. But, like, I would start making the case for Nico as early as 5, even though I think I'd maybe rank him about 6. The other kind of piece of news from today, Fitz, is a player that we've talked about before that you like, and that's Jordan Addison. I might have skipped past him. Oh, here he is. Okay, wide receiver 26. His numerical value is 49. It's just behind a 4-way tie at 50 of Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, Xavier Worthy, or just ahead of him. Right behind him are George Pickens, Jameson Williams. So he's not inside the top 24. He now, of course, is going to be suspended the first 3 games of the season. We're talking Dynasty. It's the long-term perspective. So I wouldn't expect him to move too much as a result of that. But, it is something that has happened that he is dealing with. He, of course, is the number 2 target in an offense with this question mark of a quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, who a lot of people do like, but it has not been proven yet. And I remember talking last year, specifically when we were talking about Rome Odunze, about how rare it is for a rookie quarterback to support multiple high-level fantasy options. Because, we're talking about Caleb Williams and DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. So if you kind of viewed J.J. McCarthy through the prism of a rookie quarterback, because he has not played before, even though it is technically his second year in the NFL, you know that when they're both in the field, Justin Jefferson is going to get the lion's share of targets. So are you worried about Addison for this season in fantasy and maybe worried about it even in Dynasty, because it's not like Justin Jefferson is older, if J.J. McCarthy is not this prolific passer that we want him to be?
I mean, I do have some concerns about this year. Certainly, he's not going to be ranked in the mid-20s in redraft this year because he's going to miss time with the suspension and because he is the number 2 target on a team with a breaking in a new quarterback. So, yeah, I totally get the point on this. And we have dropped him 2 value points from last month, maybe partly because of that 3-game suspension, although that is less of a big deal for a player like Addison, who is just embarking on his NFL career, as opposed to, the 4 or 5 point value hit that Joe Mixon took because he's an older running back dealing with a foot injury and, has maybe a good year or 2 left. And now he might miss some of that, some of the little time he has left. So, I think Addison is more of a long-range play than a 2025 play, in a nutshell.
Let's wrap up this section with the tight ends. A little bit more movement here. Nothing crazy or drastic, but T.J. Hockenson moves up a bit in his value. Tucker Kraft moves up a bit in his value. Those guys are still in the same order, but kind of shortening the gap between those two and increasing the gap between Tucker Kraft at tight end 8 and anybody behind him. Tight end 9 is David Njoku. That gap increased between Kraft and Njoku. Was there anything in particular that led to Kraft, let's say specifically, kind of moving up in value?
It just seems that the buzz has been strong with him in training camp, and he is a player who had great after the catch metrics last year. I mean, there might be a little bit of George Kittle in Tucker Kraft, and in an ambiguous wide receiver situation, such as the one Green Bay has, there is room for Tucker Kraft to grow his target share in this offense. And the fact that he's still young and showed such promise last year, I mean, I think the arrows sort of pointed up for him.
A little further down the list, Isaiah Likely does go up in value. Obviously, did this come out before? This did come out before the foot injury, right? So that clearly not deterring you or Debro and Erickson collectively from moving him inside the top 12 tight ends.
Yeah, another guy who's more of a play for the future than for this year. And we've talked about how Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely are both coming to the end of their contracts. And it seems to be that maybe the Ravens are a little more likely to re-sign Likely than Mark Andrews.
Let me backtrack up, higher on the list for a moment. I hopefully I'm not calling out an error in this thing in front of everybody, but is this a typo, or is it true that Tyler Warren is the same value as Colston Loveland in a regular format, but he is lower than Colston Loveland in tight end premium? They're both a 46 in trade value numerically in a regular league, whereas Warren is a 50 in tight end premium and Colston Loveland is a 55. Interestingly, if you go one spot lower, George Kittle, who is tight end 6 on this list, he's 3 spots lower than Tyler Warren in regular, but he is 1 spot higher in tight end premium, similar with TJ Hockenson, who's higher than Warren in premium but lower in regular. Is that on purpose, or should that tight end premium value be the same as Loveland at 55?
I think it should be the same. I think
Okay.
that is a mistake. I know in some cases there's a little bit of a difference. Kittle is closer to his tight end premium value bump is not as much as it is for other tight ends because he is not a high volume pass catcher. And the high volume guys get the bigger bump, the Brock Bowers and Trey McBrides of the world. But Warren and Loveland, I think, should be the same. And I think that is a typo.
And by the way, TJ Hawk, I wonder if what it is Hawkinson and Warren's tight end premium values are switched, because if they were switched, then they would be kind of aligned in the same order on both columns. So we'll go ahead and make sure to get that updated for everybody who's using the chart in a tight end premium league. I do think, like, I am really coming around on the idea that Colson Loveland might just be really good. I mean, I have always liked him. This isn't like me. I was fading him and now I'm not, but I kind of think he should be ahead of Warren, and they're currently, we think without the typo should be tied at, just behind the top three at the position. I kind of think Loveland should be tight end 4 in Dynasty. It seems like he's running ahead of Cole Kmet. Obviously, Cole Kmet has had, a little bit of banged up training camp as well. Again, we know what Ben Johnson has done historically with, he's been willing to use rookie tight ends. There's a reason Sam Laporta is as high as he is. And just with the quarterback question mark in Indy, I'm not saying to knock Warren down a ton, but if you ask me to pick between the two, I'm not really hesitating. I'm taking Colson Loveland because I think he's going to be better in year 1, and I don't see any reason why he can't be better long term as well.
Oh, I think Warren's going to be better in year 1. I guess we're just going to have to disagree on that. I think there's just so much less target competition for. I mean, DJ Moore has averaged 1,100 yards over the last 6 years. Luther Burden is having a really good camp ever since he recovered from the hamstring injury, and we know Ben Johnson likes to feed his slot receivers, and Rome Odunze was a top 10 draft pick last year. I'm not seeing where Colston Loveland gets more than 70, 75 targets this year. I could be wrong about that, whereas Warren, I think, is going to be a focal point of the Colts offense right away.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair concern, I think. I trust the offense a lot more with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson than I do. And I like Shane Steichen, so I'm not saying the Colts offense is going to be a disaster, but just the quarterback position I just think is too difficult to trust, to the point that I do like Loveland better this year. And I think that even if there's a lot of receiving options in Chicago, I do think Loveland will be the clear number 1 tight end option, and I think that's going to have a real significant role for Ben Johnson and for Caleb Williams. So, and I think it's meaningful that Ben Johnson came in, the first pick he ever makes in this organization, and it's a top 10 pick, is Colson Loveland. That matters to me in terms of the usage I expect out of him. So I always tell people, when Fitz and I disagree, you should side with Fitz, but I am not coming off my stance. I do. Maybe we could make a bet about that. Who has a better year 1 here or something? We can talk about that maybe on the main Dynasty feed.
It's interesting. I'm here in Chicago, and if you're willing to talk about how much you trust Caleb Williams, you are making a leap of faith that a lot of people here in Chicago have not been willing to make.
I've seen some of the highlights. I am aware. I'm trusting him more than I'm trusting below 50% accuracy Anthony Richardson, is how I'll put it. Who I kind of do think will end up being the starter for Indy. I don't think it's going to be Daniel Jones, at least for most of the season. I could be wrong about that. I just don't want to deal with that headache, right? I don't want to play those guessing games in Indy. Whereas I believe in the talent of Caleb, and I'm going to trust that he and Ben Johnson figure it out. But there is, it's very justifiable to be concerned there, I'll admit. All right, we'll go ahead and wrap up the tight ends there. I do want to let everybody know that you can evaluate trades with confidence using FantasyPros Trade Analyzer. Instantly see the impact of trades on your team and get expert recommendations, whether you're making a 2-for-1 deal or swapping a couple draft picks for that stud who will help you win now. The Trade Analyzer will help you optimize your roster and make smarter decisions. Try the Trade Analyzer today at fantasypros.com/myplaybook and dominate your league. Fitz, good talking to you, buddy.
All right, good talking to you, Worm, and thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon.
All right, see you, everybody.